Here's a slightly geeky tape measure fact for you. New and modern tape measures have the label on this side, or the belt clip on the left-hand side of the tape measure as you're extending it out forwards. Old tape measures have the belt clip on the right-hand side as you're extending the tape measure forwards. Or it means that the label goes that way when you're pulling the tape to the left. Isn't that weird? If anyone knows why and when they switched over from being a kind of left-handed kind of thing like that, pop in the comments below if anyone can shed any light on that. Hello and welcome back to the workshop. Ages ago, I was having a bit of a whinge on about the fact that with a normal kind of metric and imperial tape measure, there's, I mean, don't get us wrong, I really like the Stanley Tylon measures. They are really nice tape measures. But it really annoyed me that it's got the imperial and metric markings on it, and I don't really use imperial markings at all anymore. I've pretty much, not 100%, but I would say 99% switched over to metric for everything over the last couple of years, really. So it just kind of annoyed me that like 50% of the tape measure real estate is taken up with measurements that I don't use anymore. So I managed to track down the Advent vice versa double-sided metric only tape measure, and that was great. And then loads of people were like, where do you get the tape measure and stuff? And then I ended up getting these ones with the Gosforth Handyman logo on, which loads of you have bought, and that's really cool. Thank you for buying my tape measures. I'm going to explain why I really like this design of tape measure, why it has now completely taken over across the board in my workshop, in the truck, in the house, everywhere. I'm now using this pretty much all the time now. I still carry around an imperial and metric one. I still carry these around just in case I do need to measure something up in inches. There are plenty things that are still measured in inches in the UK. So there's just loads of situations, especially if you're, well, it doesn't make any difference if you're right or left-handed really, but if you're right-handed, and let's say that for whatever reason I want to make a mark on the top of this board at 9 centimeters or whatever, well, with a metric and imperial tape measure, I've got to kind of balance the edge of it on there, and I'm not quite sure where's the edge of the board, and you know, and whereas if I could just do this, but you're like trying to work out where to carry the measurement across to there, and you can't measure it from that side, and you end up getting all kind of cack-handed. And I've just found in these sort of situations where you might want to make a mark at like 9 centimeters, but you want it to be at this edge of the board, it's like, well, what do? You can take a rough guess, but it's not very accurate. And then likewise, if you're doing a left-handed measurement, measuring from the right-hand side, you end up having to read the tape measure upside down. And then once again, you're still going to, okay, you can at least mark it on the right side of the tape, but the tape's upside down. And likewise, if you're wanting to make a measurement towards the bottom of the board, you're back to the same problem again, where you can't easily line it up to the side of the tape that you're reading from, because, you know, you're kind of flopping over the edge of the board like that. And obviously there's nothing on the back either. I'll come back to that in a minute. So the reason this ended up becoming my favourite tape measure is that, first of all, it's obviously metric only, and it's metric only on both sides. So if I'm doing a measurement, say, across like that, I can easily take a reading down on the bottom side of the tape. But likewise, there's loads of situations where you might want to do a left-handed reading, like that way round, and now I can still take a measurement on the bottom side, and if I do want to transfer that measurement to the top, I've got metric on the top as well. And if you're wondering why I like the idea of having readings on the underside of the tape measure, and why I always wanted a tape measure that could do that, because you get loads of situations where, say for example, you're measuring something high up and you can't obviously put a tape measure out upside down like that because it'll just flop down. So you need to keep the tape measure that way round. In the past, what you would end up having to do, if I grab my other tape measure, I'll show you. So in the past, what you'd end up doing is you'd get your tape measure out, and then you'd try and kind of maybe twist it round so you can see the reading, but then it would like flip off the end and it would lose grip on the other side. So that didn't really work, and obviously from the underside you can't read anything. So never do that, by the way. Guaranteed way of cutting your fingers. But with this, well, there's two things you can do. You can either take measurement that way round, like, but read it from the underside, which is fantastic, or because it's got the hooky thing on that side as well. Say for example, let me try and find an example. I found an example. Don't do that. Say for example you want to know the width of this shelf, but I can't get my tape measure on top because the shelf's all full of junk and stuff, and you might be at a customer site and they're like, oh, I want more shelves that size. And again, you've got the issue where if you try and do the underside, measurement, it like flops down. Imagine it's a bigger shelf. So you can't do like the underside one because the tape measure flops down. So you need to keep it that way round. Well, we've got little hooks on the top side of the tape measure. So I can do that and take an underside measurement on either side. But the major thing, as I say, I can do normal right-handed measurements and mark on either side of the tape without losing any accuracy. I can do left-hand measurements and mark on either side without losing any accuracy. I can do backside measurements or inverted measurements, as I say, to compensate for the fact that you'll get tape measure droop if you turn it upside down. When I first found this design of tape measure, I was so excited. It was everything that I thought a tape measure should do. And as I say, I don't really use the imperial markings anymore, so it does the job. So just to run you through some of the specs of this particular type of tape measure, it's 5 meters long by 25mm wide, metric only, dual reading, dual sided, dual hooked. It's got a locking brake and it's got a finger brake as well. It's like a kind of, imagine a pause button for a tape measure, but we've got a finger brake on the underside here, so you can kind of, it's a non-reflective blade on it, obviously, which I think most tape measures have these days anyway. Rubber grip on the main body, ABS on the red plastic bits, belt clip, obviously. We've got a 3 rivet hook on the end, so a lot of cheaper tape measures will probably just have 2 rivets on the end hook. This has got 3 rivets. If you want a bit of a laugh, but a bit of a better explanation as to how end hooks on tape measures work, I think it's my first ever video on this channel. I'll put a link to it in like upper height or in the description or whatever, but one of my first ever videos on this channel was explaining how tape measures should be used. So all about taking pull measurements and push measurements and using the flappy bit on the end correctly. And of course it is EC Class 2 accurate, which is about as accurate as you ever need a woodworking tape measure to be. You can buy the tape measure from my little shop on gosforthhandyman.com/shop for the branded ones, if you want the one with Gosforth Handyman logo. If you're not bothered about that and you want one from Amazon, you can just get the Advent vice versa. I'll include a link in the description to both. Obviously, Amazon are selling them in like the millions, so I can't compete price-wise with Amazon. But if you're happy to promote a local supply chain rather than going through Amazon, then go to gosforthhandyman.com/shop and you can pick them up either in single packs or 3 packs on there. While I'm chatting on as well about updates to my little shop online, carpenter pencils have been on there for a month or so now, and the reason I've gone for these, and these are kind of my favourite design of carpenter pencil and normal pencil, and these are actually quite tricky to get hold of, so I thought I'd shove them on the shop, and loads of people have said that it's exactly the sort of thing that they've been looking for. The reason I like this kind of design of pencil, where first of all, obviously you can sharpen both ends. When you've got like a pencil that's got a rubber on the end, well, yeah, okay, you can chop the end off and then sharpen it, but it defeats the object. So I prefer to have a normal pencil that doesn't have anything on the end. And the unpainted, well, that's kind of a natural varnished finish. And obviously it's got like me web address on, and it's got a barcode on the back, which is nothing I can do about that. The pencils, though, are completely blank. The reason for that is because when you've got a painted pencil, if you're doing a scribe along a wall, pretend that's a wall, and if you're doing a scribe really close to the wall and it doesn't fit in your compass or whatever, if you're dragging the pencil along the wall, sometimes the paint on the pencil can end up marking the wall. So that's why these are completely natural wood finish, and it's just to avoid marking the wall when you're doing scribes. And as I say, you can sharpen both ends. So I have actually put some thought into it. I know talking about tape measures is a little bit nerdy, but loads of people were asking in the comments about what my tape measure is, and I thought I would just quickly explain it. I hope you found that vaguely useful. If you want to get it off Amazon, link in the description below, boo, or if you want to get my Gosforth Handyman one. But bear in mind, I do only keep a fairly limited amount of stock because I don't have like a warehouse and stuff. So if it's showing out of stock, come back in like a week or so and or check Twitter. Go to Gosforth Andy on Twitter and I'll update on there. But they're in stock at the minute when this video is going out. But if you do find they're not in stock, just check back in a couple of weeks and they will be in. And same goes for my favourite pencils as well, all on gosforthhandyman.com/shop. Thank you to everyone who's bought tape measures so far. I hope you're enjoying them as much as I am. If you haven't done the switch to metric yet, honestly, I've not looked back. I very, very occasionally use imperial these days, but almost always using metric now, and yeah, it's the way to go. If you're absolutely determined to keep using metric and imperial, I do quite like the Stanley Tylon type ones. That's the 8 meter or 26 foot, whatever 26 foot is. They're quite nice, I suppose, but my favourite tape measure is this one. Thank you once again for watching. I shall see you next time. Bye.